What is going on, my crypto fam? RJ here. And in today's video, we are going to go ahead and go over the AMA and the interview I had with Natalie Brunell. And if you guys do not know who Natalie is, she's an absolute titan in the Bitcoin space. And I've had the absolute pleasure of being able to speak with her and kind of pick her brain in regards to not only Bitcoin, but the overall market as well. Now, before we get started, if you guys haven't already, please consider smashing that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you guys are new to this channel, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you guys are notified every single time I upload new content. This video is one of my all-time favorites just because I really truly enjoy listening to Natalie and following her and seeing what she has to say all the time in regards to not only Bitcoin, but as well as the overall market. And it's definitely going to be a really, really good one for a lot of people that is on the fence about Bitcoin and wants to learn more about it. I think this is a perfect first step in terms of a video of really wanting to learn the power behind Bitcoin and its potential in our future in terms of our economy. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on in to this interview. Hello, Natalie. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much for obviously taking the time to do this interview and this AMA with me on this channel. How are you doing in these crazy turbulent times we're in right now?
Oh, I'm trying to hold up. I'm kind of shucksing myself because I bought a little bit of Bitcoin when it was like in the 40s and 50s, and I'm like, shoot, I wish I knew that this sale was coming up. But you know what? This is why we urge people to dollar cost average and not really think about the price until the long term view is zoomed out. And yeah, but I think that this can be really nerve wracking for some people, especially those that are newer to Bitcoin and got in that like 50, 60K range, which I totally feel for people. But again, remember to zoom out because you don't buy a home and check the price of it every single day.
Absolutely. I do agree. My background is coming from the same style as Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Obviously, their outlook on crypto is not what we're talking about here, but their style of value investing, which is finding a company or a project you really love, in this case would be Bitcoin, and just making sure you dollar cost average in there. When an event like this happens where it's a bear market, things that we love actually just go on sale, allowing us to purchase in something in a much cheaper price. So I absolutely agree with that. But let's go ahead and dive right on in here because I absolutely love seeing a lot of your videos and a lot of your tweets and a lot of the interviews that you do. And it just, for someone that is technically relatively new to the crypto space, it's when I try to tell my friends and family about it, they're just very still reluctant on the idea of crypto. So, and especially for my channel, the large primarily audience that I have here resolves in the DeFi space. So for a lot of the people that actually don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what did you do in your background prior to creating Talking Bitcoin and your Coin Stories podcast, and what gravitated you towards Bitcoin and the crypto space?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. And my media background is really what helped me get into Bitcoin. I was a reporter and I learned about Bitcoin, and it was really interesting because it put a spotlight on a lot of the issues that I had been covering as a journalist. Everything from poverty increasing, public corruption, homelessness, and I never connected the dots to how they were related to how broken our financial system is and this system of money printing that sort of allocates money and wealth to the people at the top at the expense of everybody else. And what's interesting is I was also sort of documenting this polarization of our country. I was seeing it unfold in real time, people kind of moving, you put yourself in a bucket, you have to be on this side or that side, and you blame the other team. And I think that that's the result of just how frustrated the average person is in this country, feeling like they can't get ahead. Everything's getting more expensive and like the costs of things are running away from them while their dollars that they're earning are worth less and less. And so when I discovered Bitcoin, it made me really passionate because, everyone wants to imagine and envision a better future, certainly one where we can take care of ourselves and our families, right? And for a while, I felt like I was looking at the future with not a great feeling of hope. I felt like everything was moving in the direction of more tension and anxiety and polarization. And then I studied Bitcoin. It took me a while. I really, really, really studied it. And I became so passionate about how it can address a lot of these issues through technology, through this amazing programming that is truly decentralized and created a truly scarce digital asset for the first time in history. And so I wanted to share that message. So I basically used my media background, my skill set of communicating and storytelling, and I created a podcast, and I just started speaking about Bitcoin and sharing the message, which I think resonates with a lot of people. And this
Absolutely.
space is growing very, very quickly. And, I know we're in volatile times, but I really see so much potential ahead.
I do as well. I do as well. Yeah, I gravitate towards a lot of people's energy, and the passion that comes out of you when you're talking about this topic is just can't help but
Thank
gravitate
you.
towards it. So,
Thank
so
you.
obviously, like you had just said, the long-term outlook here is obviously providing for our family and creating generational wealth and just making sure we can live a nice, comfortable life. One of the major turning points that allowed me to move the majority of my equities and wealth from fiat over to crypto was actually taking the red pill from the matrix and realizing just how archaic the traditional market and fiat system is, and more importantly, just how corrupt it is. So I do have a pinned tweet here. I'll just kind of show it over here, where I love this. This is the one you have pinned,
Yeah.
where you're talking about just, and I've shown all my friends and family and everyone in my circle this video. Just, can you touch on how the US, you pointed in this video, is how the US is now the world's biggest debtor nation,
Mhm.
and you're talking about inflation and just the state of the US economy. So can you touch on this a little bit?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see when politicians go out, on stage and say that, oh, we have the greatest economy ever. Well, it's kind of like a looking at a person who looks good on the outside but is completely malnourished on the inside. We are essentially a country that is addicted to a drug, and that drug is the money printer. And unfortunately, it's impoverishing the majority of Americans. And so basically, we have a system of money that's manipulated and controlled by a very small amount of people, the insiders, the politically connected, and they can expand the supply however they want. And essentially, the first people and companies who get access to that money are the people at the top, the people that have those connections, the big corporations that are now too big to bail out. And that happens at the expense of everybody else. And so we essentially have a system that socializes losses and privatizes gains. And we went from being a country that manufactured a lot of goods. We were the world's largest creditor nation to the world's largest debtor nation. We basically are importing everything. We're making nothing. And people are working harder and harder for less and less money, and are having trouble planning things like retirement and taking care of their families. So the system's broken, right? Because if America is going to represent the American dream and freedom and economic opportunity and self-determination, then it should be a place in which everyone has access to that and can, put forth their motivations and skills to create goods, services, companies, and be judged fairly. And instead, we have money going to the people that maybe need it the least, and they use that money to buy up even more assets and homes and stocks and get richer and richer. And everybody else is kind of like, well, I'm getting the scraps. So no wonder we're all fighting amongst each other, right? We're like the people in Flea Bottom fighting with each other, and Cersei's like laughing from the red keep. And
Yeah.
that's not fair. I think it creates a system in which we're going to have more and more civil unrest, and people are getting frustrated, and they're turning to politicians and saying, help me, I'm not making enough. And so it makes sense that politicians that go up there and say, well, I'm going to hand out free money, are going to probably win the votes. But the problem is, it's the money that they're creating and just doling out that is creating a lot of these problems. And so we need to take a step back. And what I love about Bitcoin is this completely parallel system that's inclusive and accessible to everyone, that you can peacefully opt into at any point and start saving money in an asset and a technology network that's growing, that's in its early stages, that is completely scarce and completely decentralized. Two things that cannot be said about our system of money. And so, I hope to help people understand Bitcoin, because it's a really powerful life raft in a system that at this point is just, it's getting worse and worse, and it's going toward, I think, more authoritarianism, more wealth disparity. And I don't want to grow up in a future that looks like that. I don't want to have kids in a future that looks like that.
I agree. Thank you so much for that. And then in the next one, I'm going to show you guys this one. This was in one of your interviews. And in this one, you actually learned a new word that you were talking about. You talk about hyper Bitcoinization, and how you would rather have a volatile asset that goes up in value over time rather than a relatively stable depreciating asset or currency like the US dollar, which goes down over a period of time. And I believe it's from this same interview where you're
Mhm.
also talking about how a lot of people view Bitcoin as just an asset, but what they don't realize is Bitcoin as a network as well. So can you
Mhm.
please elaborate a little bit on that one for me?
Yeah, sure. So, first, to just touch on hyper Bitcoinization, it's a term that we use in the Bitcoin space that basically means we're going to ramp up into more and more adoption at a quicker pace. So, right now we have, sort of charts that trend and monitor how much adoption we're seeing over the years. And actually, a lot of people don't realize that Bitcoin is being adopted faster than the internet was in the 90s. So, they're expecting about 1 billion users on the Bitcoin network by 2025, which would be, awesome
Amazing.
for all of us.
Amazing.
But at the same time, you're absolutely right. Bitcoin is not just an asset and a savings technology that I hope people use in order to maintain and protect the value of the money they earn in whatever job that they have, but it's also a revolutionary payment system and payment rail that allows people to transact directly with one another from across the world. And that transaction settles instantly without a third party taking a cut, which is what our system looks like right now. I mean, we rely on, banks, traditional banks, credit cards. Those payments actually settle days after they actually, you make the transaction in the store, and everyone takes a cut. The bank takes a cut, the store takes a
Mhm.
cut, everyone's getting their little slice of the pie. Whereas basically, this is a form of digital cash. Essentially, you're sending money, there's no one in between that transaction. It clears and you can send it from point A to point B across the entire world. And I think that that's really powerful in terms of just, the globalizing of our monetary capabilities. And so I just think through using technology, we can harness a lot of innovation and harness a lot of power and include a lot more people in the financial system, because so many people around the world are unbanked. They have phones, but they don't have bank accounts. They can't purchase stocks, but they can own Bitcoin. And so I think it's really powerful. And we have potentially, a market of 8 billion users that we can tap into.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you started talking about that, it started sparking the fire in me because I have a lot of my closest friends now really involved in crypto as well. And nothing just upsets me more when I'm trying to withdraw or move large amounts of money and the bank telling me, hey, why are you moving this money? Or you won't see it till 2 or 3 days later. But if you and I were to make a big transaction to and from each other with Bitcoin, I can send you $10,000, $15,000 without that in between. And that just is really what fuels me up in the inside, and that's why I moved a lot of my wealth out of fiat and into crypto. But yeah, I absolutely agree. And so, closing up here, Natalie, I do want to touch on something just a lot more fun here. But how exactly was Bitcoin Miami? So I saw this tweet right here, and if you could just touch on your experiences, because how would it benefit people that are interested and obviously on the fence about attending next year's Bitcoin conference? Because I definitely plan to attend with a couple of my friends. And that bowl looks so sick on pictures. But tell me just your experiences on Bitcoin Miami this year.
Sure. Well, Bitcoin Miami was amazing. And it was a really special event and full circle moment for me because I became so passionate about Bitcoin and obviously wanted to connect with other Bitcoiners. And there were so many amazing voices I wanted to get on my podcast. So I went for the first time to last year's conference, 2021. And literally, I kid you not, I had like 2,000 followers. I didn't know anyone. I brought my best friend because I was like, oh, I want to have someone that I at least know
Yeah.
when I go. And I just went to network and meet people. And I literally got the majority of my podcast guests, Michael Saylor, Saifedina Moose, because I attended that conference. And I was kind of brave and intrepid enough to walk up to them and just say, hey, I have this new show. I want to spread the word on Bitcoin. Will you please come on it? So, fast forward less than a year later when the Bitcoin conference 2022 rolled around, I couldn't believe that they asked me to be on stage, introducing people and anchoring the live desk. It was like such a transformation. I just hope that that inspires people that, number one, the community is so welcoming and it's growing so quickly. The conference was twice as big just the next year. I was able to create a career in less than a year within the space because I was so passionate about it. Bitcoiners want to support one another. They want to welcome one another. They want to like help support your projects. And so it's really one of the most capitalistic, opportunity driven spaces that I think exist in the economy as a whole. And so I really encourage people, if they have ideas, reach out, start your projects, connect, network. It's just the most amazing place to be in with some of the smartest people in the whole world.
No, that is super inspiring. When I hear other people's stories, there's two sides of people that when you tell their story, they'll either shrug it off and they're like, oh, well, that's super cool. And then you have the other side of the audience, such as myself, that just gets highly inspired by it. And that's why, I took, when I saw a lot of your tweets and I saw a lot of your interviews and stuff like that, I was like, she's such a wealth of knowledge. I'm just going to try and shoot her a message and see if she replies. But just like you said, reaching out and just seeing what happens. And obviously it changed your life when you attended it. And 1 year later, you have this amazing, amazing show and podcast and super successful. So that is super inspirational for someone like myself. So that makes me looking forward to next year's Bitcoin conference, because I will definitely be there, and I'll probably bring a friend as well, and we'll see what happens.
I know we got to all orange pill our friends. I hope you do come. It's such a great event, and congrats on your show.
Thank you so much. So as we close this out, I do have to obviously ask, so touching back on the initial statement where my channel is obviously heavily focused on DeFi, or the underworld of DeFi, where I know a lot of people can make a lot of passive income and bring the power from like the elite, like you said, to your everyday average person. I have seen and personally know DeFi investors right now who's making just an astronomical amount of money that people can't even comprehend in the DeFi space. I take my profits from DeFi and obviously I pay myself back in the form of purchasing more Bitcoin. So I do have to ask for the audience, have you looked into any other projects in the underworld known as DeFi, or are you strictly blue chip like Bitcoin?
I'm so passionate about Bitcoin because I feel like it's almost my calling in a way to help educate people about the problems in our financial system and how Bitcoin addresses them. And I will say I'm a huge believer and proponent in free markets. I actually think one of the great things we have right now within crypto at large is we don't have bailouts. The cream rises to the top and everything else falls away. And so I think that we're seeing that in real time with all this volatility and a sort of a cleansing. And whatever people invest in, I wish you luck. Make sure you know the risk. But Bitcoin is like what I'm passionate about. So I'm all Bitcoin.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Natalie, for those that are interested, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm really active on Twitter at Nat Brunell. I have a podcast on YouTube and all the podcasting platforms called Coin Stories. And then you can also connect with me on my website, talkingbitcoin.com.
Awesome. Thank you again so much, Natalie, for taking the time to do this. I know a lot of my audience members are going to get just a lot of information and just eye-opening stuff out of this, because I surely get a lot out of it. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Natalie. So I hope you guys really did enjoy that video. I loved having that opportunity to actually speak with Natalie and just pick her brain. She's such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the Bitcoin space and our overall market conditions and our overall economy, and how Bitcoin solves that problem and how Bitcoin has a space for us in the future. So if you guys enjoyed that video as much as I did, please consider smashing that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you guys are new to this channel, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you guys are notified every single time I upload new content. If you guys have any other questions, just please post them in the comment section below. Life is too freaking short, so eat some delicious food, drink some delicious drinks, do some good in the world, spread some positive vibes, and I'm going to see everyone on the next crypto video next time.